Oh, wow.
Number one, part 6. We're still only 13%. So my Kindle says we're 13% through, and I think we've been on 13% for like months.
It's a slow read. What can we say?
It is, but it doesn't matter how long it takes, does it? Doesn't
No,
matter at all.
most certainly does not. I'll go
Carly.
ahead and if
Oh,
oh,
Carly's shown up here. You're
hey,
muted though.
Colin.
Oh, I was just writing her.
You want to say hello? We haven't spoken for ages. There we go.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, good.
Good.
Joe said it was okay to drop in, and I checked with V, so hopefully
Absolutely.
it's okay. Because
Yeah.
I'd like to do a year of this book, so I appreciate joining in.
Awesome.
Always welcome, Kyle.
Thank you.
Kelly.
All right, go ahead, Gary.
The ego does not recognize the real source of threat. And if you associate yourself with the ego, you do not understand the situation as it is. Only your allegiance to it gives the ego any power over you. I've spoken of the ego as if it were a separate thing acting on its own. This was necessary to persuade you that you cannot dismiss it lightly and must realize how much your thinking is ego-directed. We cannot safely let go of it. No, we cannot safely let it go at that. However, or you will regard yourself as necessarily conflicted as long as you are here, or as long as you believe that you are here. Well, that's interesting. The ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Your other life has continued without interruption and has been and always will be totally unaffected by your attempts to dissociate it. That was a very interesting paragraph.
Actually, Gary, last week we got stuck on what the ego was again. And I still feel as far as the context of this book goes, the ego, you're not fully connected unless you completely get rid of ego. But to some extent, we kind of need ego to get through this life as we know it. I kind of feel that anyway. So, do you want to talk a bit more about what you think the ego is as far as this book goes?
I think it's any thought, perception, or belief system that is identifying as our personality as something separate from others. So it's really any thought or belief that's outside the perception of atonement.
So anything that separates us, we should probably be looking at.
Anything that separates us from the atonement is ego.
Yeah.
Now, granted, for me, it's like, how do you navigate through the world without the identification as something or someone separate? Because, you know, we look at our bodies. Your body's not like my body. I'm like this, have a whole wealth of other experiences, and you guys have a wealth of experience other than I have. It looks as if we're separate. But if you view it from another angle, from the perspective that we're all sparks of the divine, experiencing what we've created as the divine, then I can see that all the differences could look like oneness. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you melt everything away, there's not really separateness. There's only the spark of the divine animating itself in different forms and creating different holograms, I guess, of life. And we're all living in our own individual hologram that we've created. I know that sounds like I took a bunch of LSD, but I really do think that that is kind of more how it is that we are looking out at what we have created and we think it's real. And therefore we think we're separate.
Mm.
But I think ultimately it's just the spark of the divine experiencing its ability to create in a myriad forms of its expression.
Mm.
Now that's very existential for me, and when I say it, I know that for me it's closer to the truth. But can I live it? No. I walk outside and I'm like, I'm me and you're you, and there's a bird, and it's not God to me right now. And I have a million things going on in my head, and I'm dissociated from atonement, and I'm worried about that, and I'm projecting over here, and it's just like I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like I live in a madhouse. Like there's just rampant insanity everywhere, and I'm in it. It's very disturbing until I can just get really still and experiencing just for a moment that sense of connectedness. Does anyone else have that experience where you just, you're walking around thinking like, this is like crazy making, and most people are insane, and I'm here and I'm living in the insanity of it all. And once in a while I get glimpses of reality. Like tonight we'll get a glimpse of reality, but the major experience out there is something quite different. Now
Yes.
I had this experience of I should share that with you guys. It was who's the guy who played Lecter in Silence of the Lambs? Who's that actor?
Anthony Hopkins.
So Sir Anthony Hopkins did a video, and it rocked my world. Short little video. And it's fundamentally, you should look it up because it's so powerful, it's so simple. But he's fundamentally saying that if you want something to occur, if you want your dreams to manifest, you have to one pointedly will it into creation. You have to one pointedly speak about it, associate to it, get the feeling of it, and bring it into creation. And this is how we create. I've been listening to this guy named Chris Duncan lately because he's super what's the word? He's like a metaphysical Tony Robbins. He's got a huge following worldwide. He's this little Kiwi guy, bright red hair, and he's a good guy. He really is, and he works with something called the superconscious. But all the superconscious really is Chris Duncan. That's it. Sorry, Callie, I got his name wrong. But I've really enjoyed him. I did a little workshop with him the other night, just listening on. It's always the same, his workshops are kind of the same. But he's talking about not new news, but he's talking really about how you have to, associate and feel what it is that you want to feel, and then be one pointedly focused on the actions you have to take to make that actually manifest. And I was like, yeah, that's not rocket science. We all know that. He's packaging it in a different way, but it's still the same principle. Like we are the divine spark of God, capable of creating anything we choose to, and whatever our minds focus upon, we create more of, whatever it is. And it could be like I'm focusing and worshiping at the temple of, I'm afraid when I'm 80, I won't have X, Y, and Z income coming in, and therefore I'll end up in some horrible rest home somewhere, and no one will be there to take care of me. I could totally think that. But yet, we can think other thoughts and bring those thoughts into manifestation. So the bottom line is whatever we're thinking about, focusing on, and dwelling on, and most importantly, feeling, that is what manifests in time. Because every thought is like, I'm going to use a kind of inappropriate metaphor here. Every thought is like a sperm cell flowing up the uterus, looking for that egg of manifestation. And when it lands, the stuff manifests. So, I mean, the bottom line is we have to watch our thoughts with care. And this is why the whole quote from Buddha, watch your thoughts with care and let it spring from concern for all living things. As the shadow follows the body, as you think and speak, so you become. And it is that whole premise of the ego. I think in those moments of inspiration of what we want to draw to us in our lives, when it's done right and it's done with purity, out of a pure sense of my spirit desires this to manifest into the three-dimensional world for me, I think you have a far better chance of creating the life that you desire and experiencing more of what I think the God-given rights for ourselves to create is. And perhaps in those conscious creating moments, we bypass the ego entirely. So I'm rambling now about the ego, but that's what I got to say about that, V.
Cool. Yeah, I know sometimes sometimes things that I'm thinking, I'm feeling it, and I know it's coming from something greater than me sometimes. And I know those things are easy to manifest. You don't have to struggle with them. You don't have to work out the how, because they just will, the path lights up as you go.
Very true. I love that phrase. The lights up, the path lights up as you go. I heard this quote that I want to share with you guys that I thought it made a difference to me. I'm trying to remember where I heard it from so I could give recognition to that person, but it's not coming to me. But one of the things that was said was, identify the hill that you're willing to die on for what you're attempting to create out of your life. Identify what that is, like the purpose that you're willing to die for in order to have that thing manifest. Fight that one fight and don't fight any other battles. And how many of us, I'll speak for myself. I most certainly have done this where, I'll worry about the politics of our country right now. And I'll worry about the future and the immigration and, Trump and all these other things that I could worry about. I mean, they're valid things that you could worry about. But then I thought, what is the hill that I'm willing to die on? What is the one thing that I must manifest in this lifetime? What is that? And I've identified it for myself that that's the one thing I have to focus all my energy on and not be distracted by one other thing. Like not get squirreled off into this purpose or that mission or that cause over there. One thing that I'm willing to die for and to make that thing manifest. And when we really think about it, how do we make things happen? We make things happen from our focus, our desire, and our one-pointed attention. And if we have a scattered attention, it's not going to manifest. We will never get it done. It will not happen. So right now, this is Jane, this is where I was last Tuesday night. I was fighting on the hill of one pointed focus on what I must manifest. And before I croak, there's one thing. And literally, I was completely entranced working on this webinar that I was working on. And I forgot even what day it was. That's how entranced I was. So apologies. But I think it's useful that that's a thought. That's a thought that could be something that serves other people here on the call tonight. What is the hill you're willing to die on to absolutely manifest? And it may be, I want to become 1000% actualized in the principles of the Course in Miracles. It could be that. But what is it that we're willing to do? So I've squirreled, but I'm going to go back to the rewards of God. There was a line in here that really intrigued me. It said, we cannot safely let it go at that, however, or you may regard yourself as necessarily conflicted as long as you are here, or as long as you believe that you are here. I love that line, which opens up all kinds of possibilities in a quantum universe for me. I'm thinking, maybe I'm not here, or maybe I'm in a parallel universe and another part of me is in some other reality. I don't know what this means. The ego
Yeah,
is nothing more than a part of a belief about yourself. Does anyone else get that one line? I've never heard that in the Course in Miracles before.
well, that kind of sums it up nicely, actually. There's nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself.
Yeah.
That's I like that.
I'd like to see just a thumbs up if you've ever had this belief. Have you ever felt like you're a foreign entity on the planet? Like you are not really human, that you really can't relate to everything else going on around you, that you really are looking at a strange species that you don't quite recognize, and you're like kind of scratching your head like, I don't get it. Does anyone else ever have that experience? Anybody else?
I'm not sure if I felt like an alien, but I definitely felt like I'm not part of the family that I grew up with.
I'm always feeling like I'm about ready to ascend, and I'm looking around me going, wow, it's like I don't get any of this. It's like I do not understand it. Yeah.
Carly, I'd
Okay.
love to hear your perspective on that, because I know you speak a lot about a lot of different kind of ethereal things. So
My only thought was when I was a child, like when I was 3 to 5 to 8, I thought, what the hell am I doing on this earth when I don't belong? As I went along, because I'm a lot older, as I went along and discovered my spiritual side, which is our atonement side, I basically knew that I am here for a way bigger mission than my body ego knows. And so my body is the receiver. So my ego is the receiver. And if I atone my sins of beliefs, and especially judgment, of equality, if I atone for those, forgive myself, forgive my parental guidance of that, then I will meet my maker, which is the Holy of Holies, and be the servant I am in the world. And so even though it's been a long journey, my ego is the receiver of that atonement, because I am the body of my ego, but I am the body of Christ, because there's not one without the other. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's all I got.
Well, it's the best thing we're able to make up about it at this point in our evolution, that's for sure.
And it's funny,
Does it-
last week we were talking about how the ego tries to make us bigger, but it actually makes us smaller than what we really are. It tries to make us out like we're more important, but in the process it makes us smaller.
Yeah, definitely, because its job is fear, separation. And we're talking about atonement of oneness, unity, no separation. And so getting aligned with that in my body is probably the most important thing I'll do to connect to the Holy of Holies.
Beautiful. Do we need to discuss this one any further, or should we move on?
I'm willing to move on. Does anyone else on the call have any questions about this paragraph?
No. All right. Who wants to read number 2?
I'll do it.
Go on, Carly.
In learning to escape from illusions, your debt to your brother is something you must never forget. It is the same debt you owe to me. Whenever you act egotistically towards another, you are throwing away the graciousness of your indebtedness and the holy perception it would produce. The term holy can be used here because as you learn how much you are indebted to the whole sonship, which includes me, you come as close to knowledge as perception can. The gap is then so small that knowledge can easily flow across it and obliterate it forever.
I love this because I love the first bit. In learning to escape from illusions, my debt to my brothers and sisters is something I'll never forget or must not forget.
Mm.
So would you say that your debt would be like the same as sort of things you should be grateful for?
Yeah, I think the dead bit's what's getting
Definitely.
me having trouble getting my
Definitely.
head around. Kelly?
Yeah. Oh, for me, I don't see it as like a lack. I see it as a gratitude of all the experience that I've been given to grow back into alignment with atonement that my brothers and sisters offered, even my parents.
Mm.
Well, it's like the holy instant, it seems as if that the debt to the brother and the debt that you owe me, or Christ speaking, is the opportunity to look through the eyes of at one-ment. And that is that if we don't do that, we throw away the grace of our indebtedness and the holy perception that it would produce. So we miss the opportunity of actually being able to produce that in ourselves. That's how I'm taking it. Does anyone else have another read on that?
I guess it's about acknowledging the connection.
That's what I'm thinking.
Rather than looking at conflicts that I've had recently, and which are the illusion, the personalities, the ego. It's just doesn't matter. Sit with that one for a bit.
Who wants to do number 3?
Joe, you've got you're not muted, Joe.
Yes.
Do you want to read
Number
number 3?
I could. Oh, sit up a little straighter here. You have very little trust in me as yet, but it will increase as you turn more and more often to me. As you turn more and more often to me instead of your own ego for guidance. The results will convince you increasingly that this choice is only the sane one you can make. No one learns from experience that one choice brings peace and joy while another brings chaos and disaster. Needs additional convincing. Learning through rewards is more effective than learning through pain. because pain is an ego illusion and can never induce more than a temporary effect. The rewards of God, however, are immediately recognized as eternal. Since this recognition is made by you and not the ego, the recognition of itself establishes that you and your ego cannot be identical. You may believe that you have already accepted this difference, but you are by no means convinced as yet. The fact that you believe you must escape from the ego shows this, but you cannot escape from the ego by humbling it or controlling it or punishing it.
I just love the sanity choice, the word sanity. It wasn't fully sanity, but sane choice. It was two choices. And even with the guy you mentioned earlier, Gary, the super conscious guy, intuitive guy, they teach about the two choices of your higher self and your lower self. And so for me, that would be your holy self, intuitively speaking through me, or my ego self. Which choice am I going to action? But I love that, because once we've made a choice, no matter what it is, and we see how sane it is, or feel it, or know it, we then have a sanity or a new sane choice to make. And both give us the experience, both choices.
I can see the differences in like the sane versus the chaos or the drama, because in times in my life I've made decisions and it feels like it's created drama, and times where it's created sanity. And I can see people who do that, who actually love the chaos and seek it out. Yeah.
I love the last line where it says, you cannot escape from the ego by humbling it, controlling it, or punishing it.
So that really just leaves teaching, right?
That means, yeah, evolving and learning. The only
The
way
word
that
that came up, the word that came up for me was acknowledging it. Acknowledge the ego, acknowledge when it's come into play. And thank it.
I love that for acknowledging it, because a lot of times, like, you're not aware of what you're perceiving until you acknowledge it. And then from there, I can make another choice that brings me back into the saneness instead of lack.
For me, it's my emotions are always a barometer of what I'm doing. Because if I'm angry or fearful or blaming or any of those other lower emotions, I know full on I'm in the ego. And that my only choice is really to see the perfection of it and to move to that perception of the atonement, that this is like we're all being we're all being animated by the same eternal principle, and that we're here experiencing itself, ourselves, and God itself in every myriad form it is. And so I can judge another person's behavior, but I can also go to that place where it's like, that's just the manifestation of God expressing itself in another way than I am right now. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to do anything with it. If I feel bad, I can move away from it. Or if I don't want to be around that, I don't have to be around it, but I don't have to condemn it. I don't have to make it wrong. And that has saved me multiple times when I can get to that perception.
I love that, Gary, because yeah, it's rather than judging them for their decisions, it is their path, and it is another expression, as you said. So yeah.
I like to default to Byron Katie, where she would say, if it exists, it's God's will. So think about that. All the things that we judge and we evaluate and we're afraid of, if it exists, it's God's will. You know, I look at what's happening politically, and, you know, there's a part of me that could just want to set my hair on fire and move to Canada, like right now. You know, but I'm not gonna do it. But, you know, there's a part of me that's just like, it's all perfect. You know, it is all perfect. There is some forces greater than my mind and my decisions and my will that is moving humanity on this little part of the globe in a certain direction. And if it goes in that direction, it's God's will. And I have to be able to look at it from the perspective of that, because otherwise I would be a very unhappy person. That's what I'm choosing to do, and I'm sticking with it. Jane, you're being very quiet tonight.
I am. Yeah. Just kind of I kind of got some news a little while ago that is a little unsettling. So I'm just sort of and I'm listening to what you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly that yeah, it is God's will. And I think that because we can't see the outcome or the trail ahead, we can't see, and so we have these conjuring thoughts of what we think,
Right.
and put judgments and so on, and it's like, but how perfect would it be if it played out in another way? And so this is helping me very much with what it is that I'm kind of going through right this minute. So amen.
I just wanted to see if you were okay. I know,
Yeah.
like same thing in my life as well. You know, my sister has to have open heart surgery. Robert's brother, the same night, we got two phone calls. One was about my sister's heart condition that she has to go in for open heart surgery. The other was about Robert's brother having a massive heart attack. Now he's blind, and they has to operate on his brain, and he may not make it. All that happened just 2 nights ago. And we're going, wow, both our elder siblings are having heart issues, you know, that are life-threatening. Very interesting, very curious, and humbling, you know, just humbling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And to say the words, thy will be done, it's like, yeah, I guess certainly that's
we
the case.
we kind of have to go to this place of that every hair on our head is counted, every breath is counted. Our time here is finite, and there are forces far greater than our reasoning capacity that's moving this matrix of life along. And our soul just occupies different bodies, meeting out different karmic debts through the eternity of life. I feel compelled to just say this one thing. How can I say this in a way that's so the meditational path that I follow, I've followed it since I was 17. And the reason I followed it is because it reflects all the great masters who has ever incarnated on the planet. The master would say how enlightenment works is human beings are generally so lost that they must have a shepherd to lead them out. And so every ascended master came to be that shepherd for the people of the time. And this is my own belief system, so if I offend anybody else, I apologize. And then the disciples built religions around the teachings of the ascended masters and forgot the essence of those teachings and constructed religion instead. And the master would teach out of the Bible, and he would say, you have to be able to come out of that place of fear and separation and wandering in the world endlessly seeking oneness. You have to find a teacher that will lead you out. So, for all of us, it's like we all have our own individual paths and our own individual roads that we're going to walk to enlightenment. I do think, though, that we have to, if we don't have a teacher that we have followed, we have to really dig into the depth of ourselves and become that teacher to ourselves as best as we can do it. And this is, for me anyways, the purest of teachings around how to individually do that. This is why I think the Course in Miracles is such a high body of literature. And I think it gives us that possibility.
Mhm.
Jane, would
And
you like
Jane-
to read number 4? Oh, sorry, Gary.
Sure.
No. I was just gonna say I wish you well on the circumstances you're facing, darling, and I know it will
Oh.
turn out beautifully and perfectly for all concerned. Our egos may
Thank
not
you.
like it, but your soul will be fine.
Absolutely, yeah, the soul accepts everything, and that's who we are here. So, amen. Number 4,
Yeah.
the ego and the spirit do not know each other. The separated mind cannot maintain the separation except by dissociating. Having done this, it denies all truly natural impulses, not because the ego is a separate thing, but because you want to believe that you are. The ego is a device for maintaining this belief, but it is still only your decision to use the device that enables it to endure. Mm.
So how do we decide not to use it?
Isn't it? It's really quite wonderful because if we can be the observer and see this as picking up the ego device and using it so it will endure. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we need to break that one up anymore?
I do not.
No.
I'll read number 5 because it goes across the page. So, how can you teach someone the value of something he has deliberately thrown away? He must have thrown it away because he did not value it. You can only show him how miserable he is without it, and slowly bring it nearer so he can learn how his misery lessens as he approaches it. This teaches him to associate his misery with its absence, and the opposite of misery with its presence. It gradually becomes desirable as he changes his mind about its worth. I'm teaching you to associate misery with the ego and joy with the spirit. You have taught yourself the opposite. You are still free to choose, but can you really want the rewards of the ego in the presence of the rewards of God? I'll go back to the first page there for it. I'll reread it.
I think this is the whole point of misery and pain and suffering. Is so that we value something else.
Feels like a distraction.
Can you elaborate?
So the focus of the ego and the misery. So we're trying to find something that isn't misery, but the ego keeps sending us down a different path. If we're choosing that, if we're making that decision, and the more we kind of trying to find the joy, but we're focusing on the misery, then that's like a rabbit hole. That's
Well,
what
it's
I'm
interesting because we have these unconscious associations to misery. It's like our nervous system is conditioned that that's normal. And so when we like move forward, we're actually pulled back to this classical condition and familiarity of misery. I've known people who are given like really great opportunities to expand and grow or make money and get out of their economic, malaise, and they won't do it. It's like it's almost like not that they enjoy being miserable, but it is so familiar that they get continually pulled back to it. It's like outside of a certain comfort zone, it's more uncomfortable than the misery. They're comfortable within the misery. They're not comfortable stepping way outside their comfort zone. So they go to where they're most conditioned and what they're most familiar with. And that's why it says, how can you teach someone the value of something he's deliberately thrown away? He must have thrown it away because he did not value it. And it's only the misery that says, how can you show him how miserable he is without it and slowly bring it nearer? So to be, let me get that chat out of there. So he can learn how his misery lessens as he approaches it. I love that line.
Yeah, it's like not leaving the comfort zone until it gets too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Linda
love
snuck
that
into
line. Oh, I love that line too, Gary, and how it comes back to that perception, because every misery is a different perception depending on my uniqueness in the situation to you. Like your perception and mine will be different, and what's misery to me is not misery to you. It's actually joyful to you. And so perception.
I've got a friend, I don't know if this one is what this is about, but his birthday falls on the same day as the death of a family member. So he doesn't celebrate his birthday. But he's done this on several occasions where he's ignoring the good and focusing on, oh, but someone died on that day, and it's just Yeah, I don't know if that's kind of a similar thing, to focus on the misery rather than the joyful things right there. And it's proof because you're standing here living and breathing.
Mm.
And you actually provide so much to the people around you, but the focus, he doesn't celebrate it because of the death of someone in the family.
That mindset confuses me. I've got a friend who knows a lot of people, and it's like just about every day of the year is the remembrance of somebody's death. And in essence, she walks around miserable because she's always in that mindset of so and so died, I have to mourn their death today. And it's like, well, when do you take the time to actually find joy in your world? And it got to the point where I can't even really talk to her much anymore because it's depressing. It's that draining to be around somebody that's always focusing on what's not even around anymore. Like, you've got the memories, cherish the memories. Why do you have to be so sad that all of these physical bodies left this realm when the souls are out here floating around? You can still
Yeah.
remember, talk to them.
That sounds like a terrible way to live.
I know.
But
That's,
isn't that the ego in a different light? It's still me, I, poor me,
Mm.
I'm a victim.
oh, it is.
Mhm.
It just has a different pair of pants and shirt than, say, somebody else's ego.
Yep, exactly.
It's very true. That we will identify with our pain until our pain becomes our identity and how we're known. And that becomes our uniqueness. And yeah, I was doing a certification on trauma, and the woman who wanted me to put it together was a coach, and her narrative was her ex-husband turned her children against her, and her children were mean to her and kind of ghosted her and all that. And in the narrative during the class, here we are on a class to resolve traumas. But she would come to the class and tell her story over and over and over again. And I finally said to her, I said, you're here to resolve it, not to live in it, not to seek comfort for it, not to become special by it, but to overcome it. And she began using more associated language to the trauma. And I said, did you hear anything I just said? And she says, well, the only thing I want is for you to stop talking right now. And I'm like, because she started going into, I'm traumatizing her because I'm confronting her with the truth. And she started to get traumatized. And I was like, okay, but just so you know, you have a choice and you're not exercising it. So when trauma becomes, or people's pain becomes their identity, they become lost in a whole nother loop of specialness, a whole nother place of ego. And sometimes it's even harder to get them out of it because they feel justified by what they feel has happened to them wrongly. And so they won't let it go because they want justice, oftentimes revenge. Someone who's just full of themselves, that's a different type of manifestation of the ego. I find the other condition much more difficult to break people out of.
Hmm.
It is definitely another manifestation of ego for sure.
I love that, Gary, because I was reflecting while you're speaking, how that woman was in service to everyone in that room.
Oh, she was.
And then how her speaking it allowed her to find her own way to heal it by hearing herself, feeling it, speaking it, even if it didn't look like that to someone else's perception. And over time, speaking it a few more times might have been the catalyst. And then you come along and you say, you realize you got two choices here. And just that simply is enough, because it came from the truth, for that woman to then make another choice the next time around. But you
She'll
don't need to
slowly
know
come
that,
around
'cause
to it.
then that's ego, isn't it? You don't need to
Yeah.
know when she chooses it, when she chooses
No,
to change.
I don't have to know. You know, it's her journey, it's her life. And luckily, all her friends I trained up, and they're like running with the process, and they're doing great, and they're healing people. And she finally went to one of them and got some work done. So that's a step in the right direction. I think that it was just too much for her to try to make changes that quickly. It has to be much more of a slow burn on it, I think.
Yeah, because we're all so unique and different in when that slow burn takes effect.
Mm-hmm. I love the metaphor of the redwood trees, that when a baby redwood sprouts in a redwood forest, it takes hundreds of years for it to be able to grow its branches to reach the sun, because of the great canopy of the other redwoods around it. And if you take that baby redwood and you put it in the direct sun, it'll die within a week. Meaning that if we take ourselves and put us in an accelerated environment for what we think we really want, will we actually excel? Or will we have outpaced ourselves without creating the foundation to accept the light that we want so badly? So it's almost like our life is moving in direct proportion to our capability to digest the gifts that are all around us.
Mhm.
For me, I just am a little greedy and I want it sooner. But sometimes for all of us, we sit and we do our spiritual practice. Like I'll sit in meditation and I'll go, oh my God, it's like I can't still my mind, not even for a minute. And I've been doing this for 50 years. I can't even still my mind for a minute. I am a failure. Like, how am I ever going to reach enlightenment when I can't still my mind after 50 years of practice for a minute? What the hell's wrong with me? And then I'll go, it's all perfect. Even if I go through, we're just one more minute and still my mind for 1 minute, that's 1 minute longer than I would have if I wouldn't have even attempted. So for all of us, some days the meditation's wonderful. Some days every single moment is a struggle. But at the same time, that's the practice. You sit and you're not attached to the results. I'm convinced of one thing, you guys, and that one thing is that I'll speak for myself. My spiritual practice and my evolution is not dependent upon my efforts. It's dependent upon me showing up, and the absolute grace of God can open up my third eye and blow open my crown chakra like that. I'm not doing it. I wouldn't do it. It is up to a divine source to wake me up and bring me forward. But my job is to show up in at least an ounce of willingness. Because sometimes I think, we look at all the things we have to do. We have to, kind of recognize ego when it's happening. We have to look through the eyes of atonement. We have to do all these things that are quite challenging. And the place that I oftentimes get to is I feel like a lamb in a pack of wolves. It's like my mind can't still itself. I can't still my mind most of the time. Sometimes I can. But the truth of it is my spiritual practice is not going to be dependent upon, again, my ego of look what a great meditator I am. It's going to be dependent upon the grace of God because I've shown up and I want the Lord. It's
Mhm.
about my desire for God that it will finally come. So I pray every day. It's like, I just want to see the face and look into the eyes of my master, my guru. That's what I want. Do I ever get to? No. Will I before I die? Quite possible.
Hmm.
But everything that's ever happened to me spiritually has never happened from my own efforts. It's always happened from the grace of God. Never from anything I've ever done. It's like just a magic wand touches me for an instant and I have an awakening, or I have a little spiritual experience that blows my socks off. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, that's it. I didn't
There we
earn
go.
that.
You ready? You ready, Gary?
None of us.
Boom, touched you with the magic wand.
Thank you, Joey. But I think I just wanted to say that to everyone, because oftentimes this journey can feel so hopeless, because we're meditating and we're reading and we're studying together and we're doing all those things that are right, and we try to harness our minds, which I think is the effort required. I don't know if we have to earn the grace, but makes us at least somewhat worthy of the grace, is that we're putting out this effort. But will it come from our own efforts? In my experience, no. But in my experience, it only comes when I want God more than anything else. More than anything else. When I want God more than anything else, like a lover pining for the beloved, that is when grace descends. And if that can happen for all of us, I think oftentimes on the kind of spiritual path we're on, it's like we just oftentimes feel lost, or we feel like uninvolved, or whatever we feel. At least I feel those things often. But I don't think that that's it. I think my job is just to show up and long for God. My job is to show up and try to still my mind, impossible as that may be, but try to do that, because that's the discipline in how I express my love for God, my desire to see the Lord. So whatever it is for you, practice that, do that. And so that in your practices, we are pining for the lover, and maybe the beloved will answer us one day.
It will happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's happened before, when bizarre things have happened and I did nothing but just sit there. So I'm assuming I had this epiphany like I got it from meditation once. I went, oh my God, that was just so not focused. And I'm thinking, this is never going to happen. And then I think, well, of course it's not going to happen the way I think it's going to happen. No, it's not going to be happening because I'm such a meditator and I'm so spiritual. It's never going to happen from that. It's going to happen from me feeling like I have done everything I know to do, Lord, and I still can't get to you. And I love you and I want you to come to me. That's how it'll come at some point. So,
Open receptacle.
open receptacle.
We're past the
So-
hour, so we better quickly do our phrase, word, intention.
Yes.
Who's starting?
I just wanted to thank all of you, because I never get a chance to talk like this, ever. I don't get the chance to verbalize these things that are the deepest parts. So I want to thank you guys for being willing to listen.
You betcha. Love it.
I'll start, V.
Yes.
Only by the grace of God do I stare into the eyes of the beloved.
I'm going to practice meditating on what is the hill that I'm willing to die on,
It's a great meditation.
because
It's
I
beautiful.
kind of have an inkling, but I think that's going to be the focus of my meditation this week. To clarify that. Who else? Go. Carly.
If it exists, it is God's will.
Mm.
Carly.
Mine's no judgment, no self-judgment. Let God do the rest.
Mhm.
Mm. Beautiful. I have to just simply say thank you. That's it. Thank you. You have done so much by holding space here with me. I'm loving it. Thank you.
Most welcome, Jane.
Joe.
Gorgeous to see Linda.
Oh, Linda's here too. Hey.
Hello.
You're
Hey,
taking
Linda.
a break from your work? Oh,
Keeps
you've on
dropping
mute.
out.
Oh, there we go.
My sound
Missed
keeps
that.
dropping out. So I only just got in, so I need to go through and read the chapter myself. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. Love you guys so much, and have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, or however you celebrate this time of the year. And yeah, like Jane said, you know, you just give so much. It's just such a beautiful space to be in. I really appreciate it.
Mm.
Thank you, everyone.
And
provides here.
And when are we back?
Oh,
Are we
yeah,
doing
when
next
are we
week
back?
or not?
I could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
do it.
can.
Me too. I got the week off. Yay!
Hey. Joe, did you have
Yeah. Not sure if I quoted him properly, but from the great Gary D. Rodriguez, my emotions are a barometer of what I'm feeling.
mhm.
That was beautiful, Gary. Thank you for that.
You're welcome, buddy.
It's definitely a map to keep you out of the ego and let you know, hey, I'm being a dick right now. I should go put myself in timeout and speak to the man upstairs and figure out why am I in a mood.
Very true.
Mm.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great silly season, people. And we'll see you in the middle of it next week.
Merry
Wonderful.
Christmas, everyone.
Callie, it's so good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank
Yeah.
you. Merry
Great
Chrissy.
to
Lovely
see
to
you.
see you all. Bye,
We've missed
Jane.
you,
Merry
darling.
Christmas.
God bless you
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.